Welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Nyandusi Niachai, also known as Coach Deuce, and I want to welcome you to today's Men Impact Change Design Thinking Part 2 Navigating Barriers to Entrepreneurship event. I trust all of you are having a phenomenal day, and we're just in for an amazing event with some amazing speakers. And so, without further ado, I want to welcome the founder of Men Impact Change, who has transformed so many lives, and it's none other than Sonny Zhao. So I will quickly share a bio of her. Welcome, welcome, Sonny. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Sonny is a design thinker, an educator, a visionary, the founder of CEO of Men Impact Change, and she's committed to using the Men Impact Change platform to bridge the economic gap while building capable men and leaders of the next generation. Sonny's stellar leadership has propelled her, propelled Men Impact Change to a globally recognized organization, honoring African legends like Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, civil rights advocate, the late Congressman Elijah E. Cummings, Morgan State President David Wilson, along with 103 other Black men of impact, while impacting the lives of 1,000 young men. She strongly believes in Frederick Douglass's quote that it is easier to build a boy than repair a broken man. Her background in project management has served her well in building the organization well from the ground up. She has served as a consultant and board of advisor in several organizations, helping founders move from ideation to launching their dreams. A favorite quote is by Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe: "The wealthiest place on the planet is a graveyard. There lies buried companies that were never started, inventions that were never made, best-selling books that were never written, and masterpieces that were never painted. In the cemetery is buried the greatest treasure of untapped potential." Sonny, welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Coach Nyandusi. I'm so great to do this with you. What an honor! What an honor to facilitate this great workshop with you. Design Thinking Part 2. So now, your chance to be part of, you're not only the Men Impact Change honoree, but you have so many credentials as well, Coach. So it's such an honor to have you here. You're not only a college professor at Buffalo State College School of Education, but you are widely known as a community champion, a minister, and today you are joining us as a businessman, an entrepreneur, a coach, author, founder and CEO of Coach Deuce Global LLC. And you have invested a lot of time mentoring young Black men, both here in the United States, and also in Africa. And yesterday, I learned that you're working with a foundation helping barbers and developing leaders in Kenya as well. So it's such an honor to have you, not only as an honoree, but you're coming back to pass on the baton, to support this concept of design thinking, equipping our community with this concept, which is very critical, most especially right now in the middle of the crisis, the ongoing crisis. So without further ado, we also have some amazing speakers that are going to come and help us deliver this message in the most impactful way. And on stage, I would like to introduce or bring on Mr. Pickett Slater Harrington. Mr. Pickett has spent his career igniting social change. He is the founder and managing principal of Zoltage, a social change design firm that uses design thinking to champion innovative solutions to social challenges. He will share how he uses design thinking to transform the Lexington market and partner up with major organizations in the state to solve complex social issues in the community. Now, I met Mr. Pickett last month, actually very recently. Last month, he joined the first part of design thinking, and he actually joined as a donor, as an investor. Prior to that, I did not know Mr. Pickett, but I'm pretty sure he probably saw the workshop on LinkedIn or Facebook, and he knew how important the design thinking concept is. He joined not only as an attendee, but also as an investor. So we want to honor you, Mr. Pickett, for helping us propel this important message to the community.
Thank you so much, Sunny, and thank you for having me here. And thank you also, Nadusi, for actually facilitating this wonderful gathering. And you're right, Sunny. We met for the first time a month ago, but I think I've known about your work for a while now. It's been amazing, and just the power of what you're doing. I wanted to share a little bit today just about the power of design thinking. And design thinking, just to give everyone a sense of what it is, the easiest way to explain it is it's a method for coming up with solutions. So if you think about it, ordinary people are designers, each and every day. And so design thinking is just a method that you use to come up with the solution. But because it's a method, it has a couple of key characteristics that I want to point out that I think distinguish it from other efforts or methodologies. The first is that design thinking is really steeped in identifying what is the need of human beings or the user that you're designing the solution for. So that's at its very core. And so a lot of the work around design thinking means listening to people and their lived experience, that people are the experts in their lives. And if they have the power and opportunity, they can design solutions a lot of the times better than other folks can for them. So that's a hallmark of design thinking, that you're listening deeply to the folks who will be using and applying the solution, and they're part of that design effort to create it. And then the second characteristic I would say that sets design thinking apart when it comes to a solution or problem solving approach is it's an iterative process, meaning that you learn by doing over and over and over again. And each time you try or you do something, you get better at it. And so that's at the core of design thinking. So there's a lot of testing out assumptions in design thinking. There's a lot of prototyping or developing small steps in order to get to the place that you want to be, and seeing if you're right. And if you're not, that's okay, because you learn something and you build on it. So it's an iterative process. So when you think about design thinking, those are the two characteristics. And the last thing I'll say is design thinking is at the core of what I do with Joltage. You mentioned we're a social change design firm that helps champion innovative solutions to social problems. So we really blend or kind of connect community and institutions. A lot of times communities, they have solutions to their problems, but they don't have the resources in order to implement those solutions. A lot of times institutions have resources, but maybe not the knowledge of how to fix problems that folks are going through in a way they need them to be fixed. So I try to connect those two using design thinking and several other tools and resources to champion those innovative solutions that come from individuals and from community. And then I try to scale that when appropriate as well. So it's at the very core of what I do. But I think all the speakers that we have here on the panel today are design thinkers, and they're all coming up with innovative solutions to challenges, whether it's for their personal business or it's to help community. So Naduce, I'll turn it back over to you.
Wow. I'm so excited. And you hear about all the reasons why people get in entrepreneurship, and it's really about self. But when we talk about social change, connecting, what you just shared to even what Men Impact Change stands for, is so powerful. And so, Pickett, I'm also a novice here, ready to learn as an entrepreneur about design thinking. So I look forward to hearing from you. So the next uh, speaker today and special guest is Michael H. Allen, MSW author, CEO of Therapeutic Connections. And he is responsible for the day to day operations of Therapeutic Connections. and he manages all the intakes, markets, and networks with referral sources, and manages the billing and fiscal responsibilities. Wanting independence and the opportunity for unlimited experiences, Mr. Allen created M.I.C Enterprises LLC, a training and consulting business that provides clinical workplace health and wellness and continuing education. Mr. Allen has been able to build customer base of corporations, universities, human service organizations, locally and nationally. Um, and he has later established a Therapeutic Connections LLC to provide behavioral health services for adults and children in Howard County, Maryland, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Maryland, 2016. Mr. Allen is also the author of The Strength from Within, Windows to My Soul, an inspirational non-fictional memoir, and Windows to Your Soul, an interactive workbook. And so, without further ado, Mike, welcome, welcome. What a privilege to have you on today's event.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Ndusi and Sunny. This is a dream to be a part of the Men Impact Change. I attended a conference a few years ago, and I was like, wow, this is something that I want to be a part of. And today is definitely a great opportunity for me to share, my experience. I kind of walk around with my trumpet, and I live and breathe entrepreneurship. And when it comes to design thinking, all of the things that Ndusi just said within my introduction, I got there because I was fired from a job with the federal government. So I had all of these ideas. I was design thinking, but it was in my head, right? I wasn't implementing it until I got pushed off the cliff. So actually being fired from that organization was a great opportunity for me to live to my fullest potential and to start a company like M.I.C Enterprises, Therapeutic Connections, as well as write the 2 books. Because if I didn't do that, I still would be on the train every day to Bethesda, 4-hour commute doing that. So it's just funny how God orchestrates things.
Right.
But this design thinking is how I live my life. But I'm thankful to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And just to follow up on that, it's very interesting. Most of you have had me share the story that the way Men Impact Change was founded as well. Previously, I was working for JP Morgan Chase, and something very similar. I got laid off 8 years ago, and I used design thinking to found Men Impact Change. So that is how important the design thinking concept is. So I'm very glad to hear that all of you, in one way or another, use design thinking concept to found or start your businesses as well. All right. Coach, you wanted to introduce the next speaker?
Yes, we have Mr. Haziq Ali, and awesome. Welcome, Haziq. And he is the Chief Marketing Officer of Nove. Is it Nove? No, Novi.
Yeah, Nove, man. Yeah,
Nove, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Nove Money. And I'll briefly, by the way, I think it's important to share bios of such amazing people. So please bear with us if we're taking a little bit to share and recognize people who are making change.
Absolutely.
So Mr. Haziq Ali has been an entrepreneur for the majority of his life, beginning with a feature on the episode of 60 Minutes profiling. Wow, 60 Minutes. Profiling his first business in junior high school. After huge learning experiences that left him bankrupt, foreclosed, and homeless in his later years, he applied the life-changing lessons he teaches today, and within 18 months, fought his way to opening 5 different businesses, generating in excess of $500,000 in revenue, and most importantly, falling deeply in love with his life again. Wow, talk about failing forward. As a Nove founding member, Haziq was instrumental in the inception phase of the company. After inception, Haziq consistently maintained the company-wide #1 recruiter position in the direct sales side of the business for years, which led to the transition of promotion to vice president of sales and acquisition. After 18 months of leading Nove to the most profitable partnerships and affiliate relationships in company history, Haziq was named Chief Marketing Officer. Hazik largely responsible for the growth of Nove's affiliate and franchise programs. In addition to his day-to-day activities serving through Nove, Hazik is an extremely high in demand as an award-winning speaker, trainer, TV radio show guest. Blessed to have been trained by the best and personally mentored by the great Les Brown. Wow, the greatest motivational speaker to have ever lived. Hazik is also an author, a self-esteem development expert. He attended Florida A&M University School of Business and Industry. Since that time, he has elevated his studies in the real world that has not only not only him, but thousands of entrepreneurs around across the country. Hazik, welcome, welcome, welcome.
No, man, such a pleasure to be here. I appreciate that, Ndusi. And yeah, the way I always try to put it, man, and the reason I'm so excited to be here is that at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur supremacist, man. Like I really feel like the best part of every human on the planet is the entrepreneurial portion of themselves, the part that wants to make something out of nothing. I always teach that entrepreneurship is right at the crossroads, right? A service and faith. And at the end of the day, man, I think that's the best part of every man, woman, and child on the planet. The part that wants to pursue opportunity without regard to the resources currently controlled. And I think that's what gave us the automobile. That's what gave us the iPhone. That's what gave us hip hop. I could go on and on and on, but I'm really happy to be here, man.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, it's such a great honor to have you, Hazik. I know we've been following each other on social media for a while.
Yes.
So finally, we get to do something together. So
That's
thank you so much
amazing.
for honoring us with your presence.
I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So last but not least is our millennial speaker. We had to find a millennial speaker here to represent the younger generation. You know, men impact change. We always say that it's easier to build a boy than repair a broken man. So we always champion for the younger generation. So Michael Ongosaya is going to be representing the younger generation. He is the CEO of Mindstand. And prior to Mindstand, Michael experienced workplace discrimination firsthand, and it fueled him to create equitable tech for the next generation of workforce. I actually met him last month as well at the minority pitch competition. I was one of the judges there, and I was very impressed by the fact that he was able to use a painful experience. Again, he used design thinking and used that painful experience to really come up with a great innovative solution that has continuously helped a lot of minorities and will continue helping the next generation as well. So thank you for joining us this morning, Michael, and very welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As mentioned, I'm the youngin, just turned 23 earlier this summer, cancer. But I'm just so excited how, even in my college career, I was able to learn design thinking and then implement it at such a real and large scale with what we're doing at Mindstand. And the whole goal is for this next generation of workforce, as mentioned, people that identify with BLM, with LGBTQ, people who come into work ready to be comfortable in their own environment. How do you scale that experience for enterprises, for companies that may have not experienced it before, but due to the events of last year, they're all asking themselves, how can we be better? How can we use this word inclusive to make it one of our talking points, a point of strength rather than a point of weakness? So everything from design thinking, ideating, and then leading, I'm so glad to say I've been able to scale a team of 12, all just knowing that there's certain principles and ideas. I can always bring them around with my words, with my actions, with the way I carry myself. So a lot of stories, a lot of maybe TikToks I could share with you guys, get you more in depth, but I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. We love that. And I must mention that you were one of the winners at the pitch competition last month. He won $10,000 for his company. And again, we are going to recap a little bit about the 5 phases of design thinking. He was able to successfully go from empathizing, which is the first phase of design thinking, all the way to pitching his idea to a lot of investors. I remember we were about 10 or more judges, and you walked away with $10,000. Congratulations and happy birthday as well.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get into the questions, I wanted to go ahead and briefly introduce Men Impact Change. I know some people may not know what Men Impact Change is. So if we can bring the PowerPoint on here, we're going to go very quickly to the agenda, which is one, some housekeeping rules. One, the best browser to use is Chrome or Firefox. So if for some reason you may be having any technical glitches, that's because you're probably not using Chrome or Mozilla. So make sure you're using either one of those browsers. Secondly, be in a quiet place, no distractions, with a pen and paper. Previous slide, please. And also, we wanted to introduce Men Impact Change. We are going to recap design thinking. We're also going to go through the purpose and goals of design thinking too. We're also going to talk about the current state of entrepreneurship. And then we're going to dive into the panel discussions. We have a lot of questions from the audience, so we are going to be asking that as well. And of course, we are going to go into networking and actionable steps that we can take right now in order to break some of these barriers to entrepreneurship. And on the next slide, introducing Men Impact Change. Men Impact Change is an organization that connects, advocates, and educates the Black male. We are very focused on the Black male. And on top of that, we educate the younger generation or the youth into the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Our vision is to bridge the economic gap while building capable men and leaders of the next generation. And just a few programs that we have on the next slide. One of the programs that most of you may have already probably joined is the honor ceremony, where we've honored 103 very successful men. The reason why we honor them is because we want to elevate their stories. We want to break the negative stereotypes that have been propagated by the media. You can go and see and connect up with some of those men on our website, menimpactchange.org. Click on the honor ceremony. You'll see the list of those very successful men. We also launched the design thinking program this year. It's been quite a journey from January, where we brainstormed with my team and then launched the first workshop a couple of weeks ago in June. And then now the last workshop today. So we are very excited about this program, Design Thinking. And the last one is the Teen Entrepreneurship Program as well. Which is, we have a lot of great things that we're going to be sharing as we go along, that we are working behind the scenes in order to equip the next generation with the entrepreneurship skills.
Awesome.
All right. So on the next slide. Okay, I'm waiting on the next slide, please. All right, so Coach, go ahead.
Awesome. And by the way, I know in the previous screen, the Facebook group for Men Impact Change was brought up, and we will invite you and encourage and challenge you to join the community. I learned something. Let me just say this: success leaves clues, and you've got these amazing, successful speakers that are here, as well as a wealth of wisdom to all the former honorees, all the partners, all the others. So you want to connect with the group, and we'll bring that up later. So let's quickly discuss what the purpose and goals of today's event is. Every entrepreneur faces a set of obstacles, right? We know that. We've even heard it in some of the bios of the speakers, if not all. However, the Black entrepreneur faces a unique set of barriers that add an extra layer of difficulty to funding, launching, and sustaining a successful business. And we can go deeper in discussing that statement. But the goals that we want to we're going to discuss today through these amazing speakers is, number one, is identifying the barriers, and under that is the knowledge barrier, the network support barrier, opportunity barrier, as well as funding barrier. B, how to build partnerships, networks, ecosystems to overcome the barriers. There's an African saying that states that if you want to go fast, go alone, right? But if you want to go far, then you need to go together,
Yeah.
right? And see, address actionable ways to increase entrepreneurship. So these are some exciting key objectives and goals that we're going to discuss today. If we can go to the next slide, please. Awesome.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Pickett already gave us a very detailed explanation of what design thinking is. So, just to recap very briefly on some of the things that we talked about the last time, is that design thinking is the mindset of solving problems, and it helps come up with innovative solutions to those particular problems. It's human-centered approach to entrepreneurship, and it's very important, especially in times of a crisis. What we've observed since the pandemic hit, there are two groups of people. The first group were victims, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. They were victims of the pandemic. They were not able to quickly pivot, right? Their businesses failed. They were just victims of the pandemic. But there's a second group of people who saw the opportunity behind the pandemic, behind the crisis. They used design thinking in order to come up with fresh ideas, and they were able to see the opportunities. And right now, their businesses are thriving. So what group are you in? We hope by connecting with Men Impact Change and joining us every single session or reading some of our newsletters on the design thinking concept, you've been able to use some of these skills in order to pivot, in order to get fresh new ideas that will solve the problems that are going on in the world right now. So we also went through the 5 phases of design thinking. The first phase is you have to empathize with your clients. And once you empathize with them, you have to define the problem. What problem are they facing? Once you define the problem, you have to ideate, come up with possible solutions. And then you have to prototype different models of solutions to their problems. And then once you come up with the best solution, you have to test that particular solution over and over and over again until you come up with the best solution. And then at that point, you'll go and market your idea and find an investment, find an investment, and hopefully win the $10,000 or more that Michael Ongusaya ended up winning last month. All right. So on the next slide, we are going to go through the current state of the entrepreneurship environment right now. On to you, Coach Deuce.
Awesome. Just a side note, for all of you who have been engaging, we want to thank you so much for engaging, keeping the energy, as well as sharing what you're learning. So the current state of entrepreneurship environment, entrepreneurship is responsible for nearly all the job growth in the US, right? So people who tell you money is not important, it is. It helps climate poverty. It helps stimulate the economy. It is the driver of wealth creation. And as Black people, it is important for us to understand the importance of generational wealth. Only 1% of venture capital dollars go to Black entrepreneurs. Black-owned businesses are also valued 8 times lower than white-owned firms. And their annual revenue averages are 9 times less than white-owned businesses. It is estimated over 41% of Black businesses will not survive the pandemic. I guess everybody's understanding that is at this event for the first time, or Men Impact Change for the first time, or it's a reminder on why it is important that Men Impact Change exists. If we can go to the question section, this is where we can begin to have some great fun. The next slide, awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for engaging on the chat. Thank you for your patience. It was very important for us to give you that little introduction. And now we are going to dive into the questions that were submitted by some of you here. Some of them we collected on social media. And the very first question to our speakers is, how do you use design thinking concept to navigate the challenges in your business? And I'm going to start off with Mr. Pickett. How do you use the design thinking concept to navigate the challenges in your business?
Thanks a lot, Sunny. And I shared this before, but design thinking is at the very core of my business, of what I do. I help communities and institutions use design thinking in order to come up with innovative solutions to social challenges. And I want to share one example that shows design thinking in action and how I make that connection. And hopefully folks get a better sense of how design thinking plays out in the work that I do. I wanted to share a little bit about, I live in Baltimore, Maryland. And in Baltimore, Maryland, there's a place called Lexington Market. So Lexington Market is this famous public market that provides food access that is located in downtown Baltimore. Lexington Market has been operating for over 200 years. So it's a community institution. The market is owned by the city of Baltimore, and the city of Baltimore wanted to transform Lexington Market. It wanted to revitalize the market, and it selected a community developer called Seawall to help facilitate that transformation. And Seawall tapped Joltage to actually help them work with the community of Baltimore to develop a vision for the market. So, Sonny, when you talked about identifying the barriers is one of the first steps in kind of, supporting entrepreneurs and moving forward. One of the things that we wanted to do in this process of developing the transformation of Lexington Market is to work with the community to get their feedback, to identify the barriers that they saw in the market that they wanted to work on. And we were able to really listen to community, really be able to take their feedback, and we use that and the principles of design thinking to come up with a set of principles that would guide the design and the transformation of the market. And they came up with 3 principles. The first was to really make sure that the market is about food access and to make sure that it had a variety of food at affordable prices. The second principle the community came up with is they wanted to make sure everyone could take advantage of the wealth generation opportunity at the market, which meant more Black-owned business, more women-owned business, more city resident-owned businesses. And then the third principle the community came up with, it should represent the best of Baltimore culture, food culture, community culture, and those are the principles. And the community did a great job identifying some of the challenges around the market and then naming that. And then the second piece that you mentioned there was to build partnerships. So this is something that we knew that the city of Baltimore couldn't do alone, Seawall couldn't do it alone, that it would require the entire community. So we set out to develop partners and pull different partners in different areas. So we pulled in partners in the areas of supporting entrepreneurs. We pulled in partners in the area of working on safety and environment around the market. We pulled in partners to kind of think about what community programming would be necessary for the market. So looking around and seeing what partners are there and then trying to connect them. And then the third piece that you put there was actionable ways that you could actually be able to implement some of this. And one of the ways I'll describe with the partners that support entrepreneurship, we were able to develop a $1 million fund to support any entrepreneur that is accepted into Lexington Market. They have an opportunity to apply for this $1 million loan fund to give them access to capital. Because what we kept hearing when it came to Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and city resident-owned businesses, that access to capital was one of the big barriers. So we were able to remove that by creating this loan fund and having it be an actionable, tangible item that we could do. So that's one example and one project in a way that we're using design thinking, but also those 3 concepts that you laid out at the beginning. I'll turn it back over to Naduse.
Awesome. And I think, so for question 1, Sonny, we want to hear from all 3, right? Hello?
Yes, we'll definitely would love to hear from all 3. But thank you so much, Mr. Pickett, that you not only identify the problems, you came up with very great solutions to those problems. and the fact that you've built partnerships that have enabled you to, or enabled you and your partners to come up with a way of funding the entrepreneurs is just so remarkable. I'm very interested to hear from Michael Allen. How have you used design thinking to navigate the challenges in your business? And I would love to also hear the challenges that you've been encountering, especially in times of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Well, great. Thank you. So from the beginning, I utilized the competitive marketing analysis. I'm a social worker by trade. And prior to my last job, which was 11 years ago, working with the federal government, I did business development, I did account management, I did case management, but also did individual therapy and group therapy with other individuals. So I collectively honed on to those skills to establish Therapeutic Connections, which is a mental health organization. Initially, we started out as a psychiatric rehabilitation program. Like Mr. Pickett, I also live in Baltimore City. If you know anything about Baltimore City, you know that there are several mental health substance abuse programs within Baltimore City, Baltimore County area. So when I started Therapeutic Connections, I wanted to go to a space where the competition was low as a business owner. So one of the places that I identified was Howard County. It was less competition there. It wasn't a lot of Black-owned mental health organizations. It was only one of them. So I did my research. So between 2014 and 2016, I started inviting myself to meetings where those decision makers were. I wanted to identify who the players were in the mental health space, and also wanted to be in a space that played by the rules, and also who my competition was. So I did a competitive marketing analysis to look at who are my competitors that are in that county. What am I doing differently? What can I do differently? And then I created marketing to really advertise, if you will, all of the skill set that my organization was going to provide. So within that 2 years, I was able to establish some really key relationships. So once I was able to get my commercial space and get my license to operate within that county, there were definitely those partners, those community partners that I established those relationships with. They were really excited for me. They were able to celebrate me and thus connect me with referrals for the agency. Just ongoing, some of the things that I use as it relates to design thinking is I create a Gantt chart, which basically is a graph that has all of the objectives that I want to achieve with timelines. That's it. That's what a Gantt chart is. I do a SWOT analysis of my agency where I look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, and I do that pretty regularly. I collect surveys from my staff, quarterly surveys from the staff to see are they being treated appropriately. Also, the surveys from the clients as well to make sure that our service delivery is spot on with them. But as it relates to your question, currently, Sonny, I mean, definitely we had a lot of challenges as an agency, especially being in that mental health space. We are used to one-on-one counseling, one-on-one therapy. We are community-based. We go out in the homes. So obviously with COVID, we were not able to meet with people face to face. So the whole agency had to pivot and learn the functionalities of a Zoom, of an electronic platform. That recently, the telehealth order issued by Governor Hogan was recently rescinded. So now we had to pivot yet again, and now we adapted to a hybrid model. So children between the ages of 4 to 12, we meet with them face to face. Other individuals from 13 years old and up, we're able to meet with them on a telehealth platform. And then we also take into account their level of their cognitive level, right? So if they're 15, 16 years old, and they're functioning cognitively as a 9-year-old, then it may be more appropriate for us to meet that individual face to face to help them with their behavioral health challenges. So it's just ongoing pivoting. It's ongoing, just really paying attention to what the customers want. That's why those surveys are really important. That's why it's important to hear what the community providers want as well, and meet people where they are.
Absolutely. So I love the fact that you have used design thinking to do market analysis, to also assess your customers, assess your employees with the surveys, and also to pivot as well. So a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the first group that is suffering because of the pandemic, is because they're not embracing the changes. They're not pivoting. And when you use the design thinking concept, it's going to enable you or give you the skill set to pivot. So thank you so much for that. And Michael Ongusaya, I'm very interested to hear also how you use design thinking to pivot and to build your business as well.
Absolutely. Design thinking is really at a core of MindStand, where our product is utilizing AI to understand conversations communicated through text in order to pick up on sentiments. Is there any signs of positive, highly engaged messages between employees, or is there signs of implicit bias or hate speech when employees or supervisors are sending messages to others? So very at the earliest step, design thinking was created from a very technical perspective, where this was a hackathon project. And we soon had to think about how to take this from this siloed project opportunity and really apply this to people. And when you think of design thinking, there's such an important concept around the sweet spot of innovation. The sweet spot of innovation is in between desirability, viability, and feasibility. When you are able to hit on each of those 3 points, then you're really in that sweet spot of innovation. But let's start with this idea of desirability. That is this something that the people want? Is this something that your end consumer wants? A common saying is, if you had a 5-star Michelin restaurant, but you put it in a place where people aren't hungry, you'll go out of business in weeks, if not days. So it's always important, especially when COVID hit and companies were embracing diversity and inclusion. When your C-suite starts thinking of different ideas or different procurement opportunities, it's so important for you as the vendor to understand exactly what they want. So I'm excited that we're doing focus groups now with the funding that we've been able to use, really trying to understand the market. Go to conferences, even if it's virtual. Trying to be in front of people is the best way to build and scale a large business. So desirability is a huge piece that we're understanding. Because again, when COVID hit, even the desirability around remote work varies beyond employees per industry. Then, of course, you have to think about feasibility. How can we do this with the team that we have? It's commonly known that underrepresented founders are seen to almost statistically be harder to find technical co-founders. And for people who, and I've met so many founders that kind of feel insecure or feel as though that's a part of weakness. It's something that's systemically created for a lot of us underrepresented founders. Either we're trying to learn to break into those tech roles, or a lot of us are in tech for the goal of working for a large corporation. So how do you, with your idea, with your design thinking process, find a team that's willing to work for sweat equity, willing to work with you as an advisor towards getting you closer to your vision? And that's where feasibility was super exciting for us. I'm glad to say that we have 5 software engineers, 3 of them or 4 of them full-time, people who really find MindStand to be the future and they want to work towards this. So really creating a plan, just as Mike mentioned, with Gantt charts, using Jira, Asana, even a tool that we use often, Trello. Just ways to manage your projects, ensure that everyone's aligned with the work that you're doing. And then, of course, when there's time for iteration, putting the customer first. Feasibility is a big part of how we're succeeding at MindStand. And then, of course, viability. How are you packaging the solution? When you create the pitch deck, are you sure that the way that you're presenting this to investors or potential partners is the same way that you're communicating this to employees and people internally in your company? It's so important to create almost a monolithic way of describing your company, because you want every employee, every person that you have a conversation with longer than 15 minutes to be able to explain what you do to their friends or to the next opportunity for you. So when we thought about design thinking, It came from this one siloed project that did really well and thinking about how this could be a product to help millions of workers today. And I couldn't have done it without design thinking, and especially that sweet spot of innovation for all founders, people trying to break into the space, especially when you're doing SaaS, you're selling to a large market. Just Google that word, sweet spot for innovation, and you'll find some great content there.
Sweet spot for innovation. Thank you. And I want to follow up, Michael. You talked about having a team of 5 software engineers. So some of the things that I hear, or some of the challenges that I hear from entrepreneurs, is really attracting skillful partners, or a team that is very skilled. So what are some of the ways, what did you do in order to attract the 5 software engineers? What are some, did you use design thinking in attracting them, or what are some of the steps that you took?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, the thing I realized is hard work breeds hard work. If you're creating an early company and you want to bring someone in, ensure that you're the hardest working person there. You may not be the smartest person. The goal is to hire people smarter than you. But if they see that this person's committed to this and they're putting the time in, they'll work with you. They'll stand right beside you, go to the pitch meetings, and work on this company right alongside it. And I think that was the special thing about Mindstand. We were the kids at the dining hall with laptops and pitch decks, just creating that energy that people want to be a part of. In terms of a bit more technical, it's always important to figure out the structure of your business. I think we realized, especially as a startup, is we wanted to seek investments. Usually, I would say 9 times out of 10, if you want to raise investments, you want to file yourself as a C Corp, specifically a Delaware C Corp. And a website called Gust Launch is a great way in doing that. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because when you're creating this high pace, fast company and you want to recruit talent, tell people I'm creating a share agreement where after a year of you working with Mindstand, you'll receive 10,000 shares, and put a cliff date. So even though you're starting today and we're doing the trainings, you won't see that first set of shares until 4 months down the line. And that's a really great way to show people that you're willing to invest in them, but you also know that they have to work every month to receive those shares vested. So the thing that we did at a very early stage, we got maybe 10,000 just friends and family, and we spent the first $1,000 on those legal filing and services. And then from there, it was, hey, we know you have a full-time job. I want you to work 5 to 10 hours on Mindstand. We can pay you $100 a week, weekly meetings, of course, just creating a general structure around how this business can run without you being there. That was one of the first things I heard. Hard work breeds hard work, and you're not really building a successful business unless you're able to make money in your sleep.
I love that. I love that. And I also love the fact that you said exposure, like expose yourself to different people, get out there, pitch your idea, ask for help. You may get, out of the 10 asks that you ask, you're going to get maybe like 7 no's and maybe 3 maybes. So you're just going to have to just go out there and ask and keep asking.
The best, if I may ask, the best connections I get are connections from someone else who connected me. Whenever it's that kind of second layer of connections, someone that heard your idea, internalized it, and then connected you with someone who then did the same thing, that's usually where they really understand your business and are ready to work with you. So like you said, always be in events, always ask, and it'll work in your favor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael. Powerful points, powerful points. All right, Mr. Hazik, thank you for your patience. So I'm very interested to know what keeps you going, especially last year I observed you are always out there on social media, empowering the entrepreneurs. You have these phone calls in the morning, just talking to entrepreneurs and keeping going every day consistently. What kept you going? And also, how have you used design thinking to really grow your business? You told me it's one of the fastest growing businesses and you're not on social media as much. So what are some of the other systems or ways you use to grow your business, and how do you use design thinking to do that as well?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a pleasure. I've been enjoying hearing, the different concepts and perspectives that everyone's been sharing. And to answer your question, it's just, whether you're talking about, I mean, I could go through design thinking with, a bunch of different areas of our business, like when you're talking about customers, I always teach our students that the three most important questions, if you don't answer these questions before you start a business, is really scary, and I always tell them those three questions are: who do I want to sell to? How intimately aware of this avatar am I? Which is the theme we've heard over and over again from the other entrepreneurs on the panel. But I mean, you just can't overstate the importance of knowing who it is you're speaking to. Because if you're trying to talk to everybody, you're speaking to no one. Mm-hmm. So who is it that I really want? Who can I help the most, the quickest? The second question is, who's already selling to them? Because if you don't have a market that you're aiming at, then it ain't marketing, right? So who's already kind of serving that client? And then, why do they hate it there? There are always going to be three different types of consumers in that group. One is just die hard, so that's when you're in a barber shop and you're trying to say KD or LeBron and everybody got their own, right? That's a debate that goes on forever because you're dealing with diehards. Then you have the hagglers, where they're willing to hear you out, but they're like, how much more are you willing to give me for what I'm giving? They're willing to hear you out, but they've got enough success with what they're doing to justify staying there. You're dealing with them if you try to get into a price war, a detail war. Now it's a race to the bottom, because they're just trying to negotiate you to death. But then you have the segment that you're really aiming at in every type of business, every type of industry. I don't care what vertical side. Who hates it? Who's in it? They're buying it. They realize they got this problem they're trying to solve, but they're stuck in it. That's your client. But all I did was describe empathy. All I did was go through it. And so that's with customers. Or if you're talking about staff, we had a situation developing where I was starting to notice a culture, because building intentional environment is the opposite of self-sabotage. As we all know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Like, environment is stronger than willpower. Mm-hmm. So I was starting to notice, amongst our staff, a culture developing where brothers and sisters would crack jokes about the clients when they would hang up the phone. Like, we're in financial services. You could say we almost do social work, but for people's financial services. And I don't know how much we've all thought about it, but your finances a lot of times are tied into your self-image, and who you see yourself as operating in this universe. And so, what I didn't like was that, because it's such a thankless job, you started to develop a culture where, to protect your morale, you begin to make the customer kind of like the enemy. It becomes antagonistic. So we would have people come in who had such good attitudes during the interview process, et cetera, so forth. But you started to notice that their bedside manner started to switch up. And so, we had to take them through design thinking, where it's almost like, now, wait a minute, this is not your enemy. This is your friend. This is your sponsor. This is who pays your paycheck. And what if we change the game from trying to, and I was familiar with this premise because one of the businesses that I had was a chain of kiosks that was all up and down the East Coast. And, no one's more disparaged than somebody that approaches you from a kiosk in the mall. And so what you would do to keep your morale up is you would crack jokes about them. You know what I mean? Because, it's almost like either they're going to make you feel really small and tiny as they walk past you, like, you know what I mean? Like you're short, or you're going to have to come up with a way to make it so that you can keep your enthusiasm up. So I was familiar with the phenomenon, but what we had to do was go in there, use design thinking, and help them to switch around the game they're playing in their head from trying to protect themselves to becoming more giving. Instead of trying to protect yourself from the fact that this is a thankless job, that they're upset about their finances, that whatever they're expressing, when you do it perfect, it's like you better had. And once you mess up, it's like all heck is breaking loose. Instead of playing their game, let's begin to create the game. Instead of playing a game that you see being presented for you, what if the game becomes, let's make their day? What if the day becomes, let's make this the best experience they've had all day, and then all week, and then all month? What if we could be the best thing that happens to them all year? Now it becomes a whole different game you're playing. You begin to access different levels of information. Your vibration switches up. It increases everything. And, the same thing you could put on strategic alliances. When you're talking about building joint ventures and creating value in different partnerships, again, intentional environment is the opposite of self-sabotage. What can you do to really jump into networks that you aren't a part of and add value so that you begin to deserve? I always say you got to serve before you deserve. So it all comes back to design thinking. So when you're asking me, what are the different ways that we've been able to sustain, even when you're talking about a pandemic, and different people have touched on it over and over again, how we all had to embrace technology, but using design thinking, it was really amazing to watch the transformation where it used to be rude that you chose Zoom over meeting in person. But now you're actually showing empathy, and it exploded our business.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like some of these statements that you've said, that you got to serve before you deserve. I really like that. And that you have to jump in networks you're not a part of, because that is how you're going to grow your business. And one of the things that have actually really enabled me to grow and continue growing Men Impact Change, building Men Impact Change, is as a result of emotional intelligence. A lot of times you have to really always be focused on the future, and all these little conflicts or little challenges that you may encounter along the way, they will not move you, because you're looking towards the future. You're thinking, design thinking, right? You know the end goal. And so using emotional intelligence is very, very important. And one of the statements that I really, really resonated with on your website, Mr. Pickett, and I told you about it, is that you have to act locally and think globally. When you use that statement, any challenges that you encounter, any crisis that will come up, there is the COVID-19 crisis that's going on right now. There'll be another crisis once COVID-19 ends. Life is always full of crises, but when you always think ahead of the game, thinking globally and acting locally, then all the challenges you encounter, you will always have a way of overcoming those challenges. All right, Coach.
Yeah. I'm just taking all of this in, and there's very many. First of all, I want to thank all of you, Pickett, Mike, um, Mike Hazik, and Michael. Uh, I've just there's some major common denominators when we talk about design thinking and just entrepreneurship in general. Like the whole going back to, like, you cannot do it alone, right? And you have to find those strategic relationships and be able to be intentional. So I'm so grateful to hear all of this wealth of wisdom. So question number 4 is, if we can go to question slide number 4, and these next 2 questions, I believe um, some have been answered in the information that was given in response to other questions. But if we can go a little bit deeper, some entrepreneurs are reluctant to change, right? Change is one of those things that very many entrepreneurs are reluctant to, from all groups, right? And we've even seen how those who failed to during COVID, they failed to address change. Many fell, and then those that did, they thrived. So, how does design thinking help people navigate the changes that are going on, in the life of an entrepreneur? If we can start, Michael. Olusanya.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And this is something I'm experiencing now. Such a great example. You know, we have a great mission, we have a great product, but we haven't really pinpointed the key points yet. How we're going to solve some problems. But I'm ready. I'm passionate. You know, they say fail fast and fail forward. I told myself I want to just start closing deals. I want to start signing up customers. And I definitely moved along that path, but I saw that there was a certain point when they had to explain, you know, our product to someone higher up, when they had to solicit for the budget. And this is, you know, 3, 4 months down that initial conversation. There is a certain piece related towards design thinking and customer experience that I haven't thought through yet. And I noticed that that was what was holding us up from that absolute yes. So the reason why I'm saying that is it's so important to understand the barriers. You know, as an entrepreneur, it's infectious culture. You want to get up every day, you want to be at the coffee shop, you want to pitch, you want to be in those environments, but just know that there may be certain things, whether it's compliance or barriers in your space, that as much work as you put in, it will not get to that next threshold. It won't get to that next step. So it's always important, like Steve Jobs say, to just build so user focused the way you structure your work, your experience, your design thinking. As long as you keep the customer in mind, you're going to build so many features and so many additional great things that you can look back on and say, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't create a process around this. So all focused on knowing that there may be barriers that you won't see even if you put in 10,000 hours. That design thinking can really help you navigate ahead of time.
And Michael, that's so powerful. So what I'm hearing is, instead of looking at you and your company and your team as the experts, right? You look at yourself as you're constantly learning the customers, you're constantly learning those barriers. And I think that's such a powerful state. Like you're keeping you're staying alert to the potential future challenges. And obviously, you talked about culture, Hazik, so that also flows and that becomes a culture of your company. That's awesome. Pickett, yeah, how does design thinking help people who are challenged with change?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about design thinking, I shared this earlier, is it's an iterative process, meaning that you take small steps and you learn and you build along the way, right? And probably even in Michael's work that he used when he's developing software, right? He's not going to spend 2 years developing out that software 100% and then get it out into the market and test it, right? He's probably going to take 1 month. Let's build about 30% of it, good enough where it works, so minimal viable product, get it out, let people see it, look at it, play with it, figure out what they like about it, what they don't, and then let's add and we'll build. And now we're at 50, 60, you're testing it along the way, right? So I think that's a key lesson for entrepreneurs is start with those small steps, test your assumptions out. There's less risk in it, and then you build it and grow it from there. And so that's the process I think you have to think about. That's one. The second thing I want to address too, when I think about removing barriers, we have to think about how do you remove systemic barriers, especially for Black entrepreneurs, right? I mentioned before that when Lexington Market, we had to develop our own loan pool fund for those entrepreneurs because we knew we wanted more Black owned, women owned, city resident owned entrepreneurs there. And they had a systemic issue with access to capital. So we have to figure out a way, how do you get around that systemic issue? And we know as entrepreneurs, even sometimes the culture of entrepreneurship, like fail fast, right? We know what that means. But a lot of times for Black entrepreneurs, that sense of failing, right, carries greater weight sometimes, right? And it's harder for you to overcome that failure, especially like if you mention only 1% of venture funds go to Black entrepreneurs, right? To fail in that sense is almost like a systemic barrier because you might not get another chance to try it again, right? Because you barely got a chance the first time. So if we're going to be really successful, not only do entrepreneurs need to iterate along the way, but we need to collectively think about how do we address those systemic challenges to entrepreneurs, especially Black entrepreneurs.
And Pickett, I'm curious too. When you've got in certain areas where you've got what's the term that they use where there's this influction of basically I can't remember the term. So a lot of white individuals
Oh,
moving into um,
gentrification.
so with a
Gentrification.
lot of gentrification, and it's like you're going against the tide. So that also, so I'm even curious where okay, use design thinking, but now like the community, the government, the you know wealthy, predominantly white business owners are pushing to it. So it seems like counterproductive.
Yeah, and you have to almost think like this and plan like it. And I think Hazik said it the best way. And Hazik, I gotta write that down. The way that you phrased it is that you got to intentionally create that reality. Because if you don't, it's not going to be there. So when it came to gentrification, that's one of the things that we had to have a conversation about and talk about, and then plan so it doesn't happen. Because if you don't plan for it and you don't counter it, it's going to happen automatically because that's how it's set up. So one of the things that we set out to do with the design of Lexington Market is like, how do you create transformation and revitalization without displacement, right? Because that's the key thing with gentrification, right? Is that you displace the people that were there with a new set of folks, right? Everybody wants like great, wonderful, beautiful stuff. Everybody wants that as human beings. I just don't want to be kicked out for you to get it, right? So one of the things you have to think about is like, how do we make sure that with Lexington Market that it serves the existing people who are already there, but it also adds new people and multiple folks could be there in that same space at the same time. So one, when it comes to economic kind of classes, right? How do you make sure poor people are still getting food access, but you also have middle class folks who also want to come down and get a culinary experience? So one of the things we have to say is we have to make sure that SNAP, known as food stamps, are still accepted at Lexington Market. So folks who want to come, who are on food assistance, who need to purchase food, can do that, and they don't get pushed away, right? But we also got to make sure that Black entrepreneurs can actually start a business and generate revenue and kind of contribute back to the Black community. So you got to look along that entire spectrum, and you got to do it with purpose. And you got to think about it. And Hazik, what is that phrase again about creating your intentional reality? Because I want to write it down.
Yeah, that creating intentional environment is the opposite of self-sabotage. Yeah, and man, you're saying some really powerful stuff, man, because what you're doing is you're outlining why we need more entrepreneurs in our community. This whole time, man, it used to annoy me because everybody be like, Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, what them companies are saying, they're referring to your dollars. They're just saying, we'll accept your, no, the premise is Black businesses matter. Yes. Because until you have Black businesses, Fox News come or whoever insinuates you lazy, you dumb, you a criminal, and then Publix is advertising, and it's like, where you gonna go, Craig? Like, you have nowhere else to even get your groceries. It's like they have you and so we have a lot of emotion, we have a lot of passion, but what we need is more conferences like this, because what we need is an economic plan. Like what happened with Haiti, they just now did this thing on us in Black Enterprise. They took some of it out, but what I was telling them was that like, Haiti overthrew Napoleon, man. You got to think about it. This is the greatest general. You let them tell it. And Haiti crushed this fool. But they didn't have no economic plan. And now they're one of the poorest countries in the nation. It's that economic plan. When you look at when you look at, we love talking about Black Wall Street. Let me tell you something. Black Wall Street happened because of them forcing us to support each other. I don't know how many of us understand, but Black Wall Street happened because when O.W. Gurley brought everybody there to Oklahoma, there was oil money. Then Oklahoma becomes a state, and the first thing they do is enforce Jim Crow. So that all this money was intermingled, white people shopping with us and all of that. But then they dumb butts put in Jim Crow and said we can't shop with them. So they could still shop with us. We can't shop with them. So we had to spend the money. So then when they started discovering oil everywhere else, the oil money fell out. The only real money left was from the businesses, which was us, baby. And so, that was just infuriating. And then that's what set it off. It was just a powder keg. And then what set it off is, of course, the alleged, improprieties with the white lady, like we see every single time. It's always some white. But I'm saying all that to say that, like, our real power, whether you're talking about Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia, whether you're talking about, the businesses that were in, Raleigh, Durham, whether you're talking about, the place we affectionately call Black Wall Street, there were so many of these places. Our businesses is what starts everything off. If you look at them old Westerns, man, if you look at the way the town starts, right there, right? The Main Street, right? What they say, we meet you down at here's the hotel, here's the bar. It all starts with the businesses. Then way out there, there's some houses or something, little house on the prairie. But you got no businesses, you got no community. So I'm really proud of what we all doing here. That's all I want to say.
This is so powerful. I was just thinking entrepreneurship, and when we talk about within the realm of Black entrepreneurs, it's like the modern day civil rights. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing that up is when Pickett was talking about small step testing and this design thinking concept, you got to think bigger than just right now. You got to think bigger than the quick check and quick dollars. You got to think in terms of, like, how does my business solve issues for the whole community long term? So even if I fail right now and I'm constantly testing, it's bigger. And I think that's where because that's something I'm hearing from all of you, and even from your bios. It's in design thinking, it's being willing to have such a strong why, to the point that you're willing to keep doing going through that process so as to come up with a better solution. So
Coach,
in fact, the reason I had said that,
real quick, the reason I had said that is because gentrification don't just come from nowhere. Gentrification comes from, first, people divest from the community.
Yeah.
After you pull the resources out, ain't no jobs, ain't nothing but it's like, and then they come in like a fire sale and buy everything for pennies on the dollar because they suck the life force out. So if we are able to replenish that ourselves, and they can't keep playing this game with us, that's all I wanted.
No. I was actually interrupting because I was saying, actually, feel free to just go ahead and answer that question, that how to navigate the changes with entrepreneurs since you already started, as far as those who are reluctant.
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah. I was just saying, if you want to flow into.
Oh, all right. So, when you say that, break it down for me. What precisely are you referring to?
So basically, embracing change as entrepreneurs, right? So just change in the life of an entrepreneur in a company. So how does design thinking help to navigate that? Because a lot of times people struggle with the change because not because they don't want to. Sometimes they just don't know how to.
That's exactly right. See, the thing that we got to understand about entrepreneurship, and I alluded to it earlier, right? But entrepreneurship don't even mean you're a business owner. We use like they're interchangeable. A lot of business owners ain't even entrepreneurs. That's why businesses go out of business so quick. They're not prepared. You'll never climb a smooth mountain, right? The whole idea of an entrepreneur, according to the Harvard definition, is that you're looking to exploit opportunity without regard to the resources currently controlled. Like, you're willing to make something out of nothing. That's why I say it's a perfect crossroads at faith and service. So when you look at famous entrepreneurs throughout history, like the Wright brothers would bring enough material out the house every day to crash 5 times. You know what I mean? These are bicycle mechanics. You know what I mean? Like, their uncle is telling them they're blaspheming because if man was meant to fly, he would have wings. You know what I mean? 66 years later, we on the moon. What I'm saying is that design thinking at its essence is entrepreneurial, because even when you have a job, what you're looking to do is start from that empathy, and then work it right on through the process of prototype and testing. Marketing, if you can't track it, they tell you don't hack it. Even when you want to break down how the Wright brothers got the plane out there, they had to use design thinking because they used risk reversal. When they made their pitch to Congress, they said, tell us which plane you want to build. We're going to get it done. It's going to be no cost to you unless it works. So they're empathizing with their client, like, oh, we know you don't want to pay for some cockamamie scheme we got. We fix bicycles. We get it. So I'm just saying that to say that, like, at the end of the day, the way that the climate keeps on changing is what create chaos is a ladder. That's the way Game of Thrones put it. Chaos is a ladder. And whether that chaotic state is a pandemic, whether that chaotic state is some new policy that came down in your industry, whether that chaotic state is some knucklehead employee, I used to have cats stealing from me. I wouldn't even fire them right away. I would use the fact that they stealing like a virus in the body of my business. And then I will make sure I fix the virus. Then I'm like, try your best. Then I fire his ass. You know what I mean?
Wow. That's powerful.
Chaos is a ladder. You know what I mean? Like if we're not looking to take advantage of the adversity, are we even entrepreneurs? That's even when you're an employee. You see who messing up at the job, You see who ripe for the takeover. You just got to play the game raw and realize that, like, to the victor go the spoils. And what's the victory? Who can have the most impact? Who can serve the most? Who can make it so that their life matters the most? If we was all playing that game, we all win. You know what I mean? Because it ain't no race, man. It's a classroom. I be trying to tell them, this ain't nothing where you get first place, I get second place. This is something where we could all get an A, because it's us against the teacher. You know what I mean?
Wow. This is so rich. Man, this is so rich. Haziq, thank you so much. Mike, I am so grateful you have been so patient with all of us in the engagement.
I'm soaking it all in. I'm like a student right now, and I'm learning from this as well. So this is definitely important. And I mean, so many thoughts are coming in my head while I'm here. Brother Haziq and Pickett and Michael and so forth. But I mean, what we have to understand, like, what's our why? Like, why do we get into this? Because everybody has a story. I know when we were kids, like, some of us didn't necessarily think that we were going to be doing exactly what we're doing right now. I mean, I'm a kid that grew up in the housing projects of Brooklyn, East New York. I lost my mom at the age of 16, so having adversity, was able to allow me to propel to be where I am right now. Right. So I knew that if I could survive losing my mom or looking down at the barrel of a gun, I might as well be able to start a business and really just do it unapologetically, because, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and they made these sacrifices so that we could really be to the point where we are. When I was fired from my job, I was with my daughter, and I took her to the library, and I had picked up a book. I'm in the children's section, mind you, and I picked up the autobiography of Marcus Garvey. And if you know anything about Garvey, they said that when you heard him talk to you, or if you read his readings, it was like he was talking directly to you. And so I felt that at that moment. And he said that in the book, that if the problem with the Black American in the United States is that you could be making $100,000 a year and think that you've made it. Right. But if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, there's unlimited amounts of money that you can make. And that really just really spoke to me at that point, and really put the battery in my back to just say, hey, I'm going to go out there. So change is inevitable. Right. You have to change. Right. It's like learn the rules to the game and then play better than everybody else. So I love when Sonny talked about emotional intelligence, because you have to play this game or engage in this business game like it's the game of chess. So thinking 2 steps ahead, or as we say in the world of social work, anticipatory guidance, right? So thinking about 2 or 3 steps ahead. And that's how you have to think about it. And, as a business owner, I have to have a succession plan, for myself. And I was, even with that, having a succession plan, I was looking at that from a different lens. I was thinking about like what would happen to my team if I got hit by a bus, right? But and who's going to run the business? But then I had to change my mindset to say, no, I don't have to get hit by a bus to implement the succession plan. What if I want to take my family to the south of France and still have the business flowing, and think of it in that sense as well? So really changing our way of thinking constantly, and building or pulling back the layers of an onion as well, to really be able to think forward, and having not only a succession plan for myself, but a succession plan like, what if we have encounter another pandemic or crisis where it's going to impact my clients, and we don't have as many clients. I'm in the human capital world right now. So, and that way, how I'm preparing for that, we provided a psychiatric rehabilitation program that helps individuals to practice the skills that they're learning within therapy. At the time, in the beginning, I didn't have therapy. I was partnering with a whole bunch of different agencies to have them, I'm negotiating with them to send me their clients so that I could have business. So then I said, well, I need to be the source. I need to be the plug. I need to be I need to have a therapist. I need to have a psychiatrist. I need to do that. So during the pandemic, last year in June 2020, I was able to get a license to have an outpatient mental health clinic. And now we have a double board certified psychiatrist. We have a team of licensed clinicians, and now we still have the psychiatric rehabilitation program. So if any one of those services are impacted, then I have those other services to allow the business to become and stay and remain sustainable. And then I'm constantly thinking of other services that I want to provide to those individuals to continue the revenue, but also to help people as well, because that's the cornerstone of what we are at Therapeutic Connection. So I'm constantly thinking and constantly growing. And the people that we are today, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we will be totally different. We'll have different objectives and different things that we want to grow and build as well. So just wanted to share that about change. And those are the things that I heard from you guys that just kind of spoke to my spirit that I wanted to share.
I love the fact that you've brought up about having a succession plan. That is something we are actually also working on here at Men Impact Change, because the same thing, I'm always thinking, if anything happens to me or happens to the key board members, does that mean Men Impact Change is going to just disappear? So that's something we also need to do as a community. We need to think about succession plans, and they have multiple resources out there on YouTube, on Google, everywhere that can actually walk you step by step on how you can create that particular plan. All right, so something else that I really liked, Hazik, we've been saying here at Men Impact Change that there is always an opportunity behind every crisis. But now I even love your statement much better, that chaos is a ladder and take advantage of it. So that is still a much better way of communicating the same message, that chaos is a ladder. So every time you see a crisis, guess what? Think about a way you can actually climb on top of it. Love it. Thank you. So something else that I always say is that it's very important to learn from other communities, especially communities that have overcome they have a terrible history, but have been able to overcome that history, and they are doing exceptionally well. And one of those communities that I have been taking some time for the last 2 years to really study, I've been reading their books and just really getting close to some of them to see how they live life, their lifestyle, how they make decisions, is the Jewish community. And one thing I can tell you is, at the beginning of this year, most of you probably have heard me mention, as we were working working on the strategy of launching the design thinking concept, my colleague and I, we were at Starbucks, and we were working on the PowerPoint. And one of our friends, a Jewish gentleman, an executive at Capital One, happened to come by, and he saw the PowerPoint saying design thinking. And you should have seen the expression on his face. He was amazed, very pleasantly surprised that we are also teaching this concept to our community. So the design thinking concept might be very new to a lot of us. It might be very new to you, but it's not a new concept. It's being used by other communities, and that's why they are thriving. So next, we wanted to show you a short clip on something, one of the principles that I learned, a business Jewish principle that I think us as a community, we need to also implement and embrace. So we are going to play a very short clip on that principle before asking the next question.
Jewish business secret number 3, community, community, community. I see so many times that there are communities out there that unfortunately do not want each other to be successful. They tear each other down. In Yiddish, there is a word called fargin, which means that you are happy for another person's success. In order for a person to be successful, you need a community of people around you that are cheering for you, that are encouraging you, that are financing you, and that are giving you business and are trying to see you succeed. So in order to grow, in order to become great, you need to have a community around you, and the Jewish community does this great. It's very common that a lot of times when somebody starts out a new business, people will give him or her business in order to get them started, even if their pricing isn't the best and even if their quality is not the best. But we want the community to succeed. Get around great people that want to see you win.
Absolutely. I love that principle. And also, Hazik, you did mention something very similar. You said if there are no businesses, then there's no community. And the community cannot really, a business cannot thrive if we are not supporting that particular business as well. So following up on that video and the message in that video, it is said that independence fosters inequalities. And until we embrace interdependence and collaboration, eradicating these inequalities will be near impossible. What are some of the ways we can foster collaboration, build ecosystems or networks that foster collaboration? And Mr. Pickett, if you can start us off.
Yeah, so I'll share about this because I think it's important that we think about how do we build these collaborations and partnerships if we're going to be successful, if we're trying to remove those systemic inequalities. And I think it kind of goes back to some of those lessons that you shared before. I think you first have to recognize what the barriers are. And a lot of times when we think about barriers to entrepreneurship, there are personal barriers, right, that we have. And I know, Hazik, you probably do a lot around motivational speaking and self-esteem, right? There are like these motivational barriers that we encounter that we have to kind of get over. And Mike, I know you have a great personal story with Windows to Your Soul about how you overcome those. And Michael, as an entrepreneur, kind of working in the tech field, I'm pretty sure you're overcoming those, personal barriers as a person of color working there in that field. And so we are all overcoming these personal systemic barriers. And the way we do that a lot of times is through community, right? It's through efforts like this. It's through connecting with one another. I know Mike outside of this, and we support each other, right? We're talking and we're kind of, supporting each other in any way that we can do. So community helps you kind of overcome that personal barrier, but then there are larger systemic inequalities and barriers that are there. Nadusi, you mentioned this idea of gentrification. So if you're doing work in Black communities, right, that's something that you're going to have to deal with and think about. The wealth gap, right? Hazik, you're thinking about finances and funds, right? There's a great big gap between what people of color make and their wealth and other people, right? Like those are those systemic inequalities, and the only way that we're going to be able to address that is collectively, right? I know we're all here on this panel doing what we can individually, But the only way you're going to tackle systemic wealth inequality, that you're going to tackle issues of gentrification, all these systemic issues that only, people of color only get 1% of venture capital, is like we got to collectively work on it. So when you say it is about interdependence and coming together in order to remove these systemic inequalities, that's the only way we can do it. We each got to do our part, but we got to do it together, and we got to think about it. And like Zeke said, I'm going to say it again, intentional environment is the opposite of self-sabotage. So you got to intentionally create that reality that you want, and you got to focus on it.
Absolutely. And there's a famous proverb, an African proverb that says, when spider webs unite, they can bring down a lion. So collaboration is something that is one of the key pillars at Men Impact Change. We believe in collaborating with people of diverse backgrounds, because that's how we become strong as a community. So Mike Allen, what do you think, or how do you think we can continue fostering collaboration?
For one, I think, there's so many different ways. And I think just being very intentional. I know, Sonny, you're a part of my Facebook group, Ambitious Entrepreneurs. Every day I post a positive, something motivational, a statement, if you will, that is going to, put the battery in somebody's back and get them really excited to really achieve their goals. So we have more power than we give ourselves credit for. Surrounding ourselves with positive people like we're doing this morning, and being intentional in doing that. Obviously, reading books. So I meet a lot of people and they'll say, hey, I read this book about this or this book about that. And I said, well, look, that's great. How are you going to implement the information that you've read in that book? Just to give you an example of how I incorporated interdependence. And with my business, when I first started, I had no money, right? I told you guys I was fired from my job. I was doing business development. First year that I was there, made 31 million in sales. Next year, I made 45 million in sales, but I was still getting paid $73,000 a year. Right? But I was grinding, right? I'm a New Yorker by nature, so I like to grind. One of my colleagues, he told me at that time, he says, Mike, I don't know how you're making all of these sales. He said, if you ever think about starting your own business, I want you to reach out to me, because I will be willing to invest in you. So 7 years later, I reached out to him. I said, remember you told me you was willing to invest in me? And I went and I shared my strategic plan with him. I didn't just say, hey, I'm starting a business, and he gave me money. I went through my strategic plan with him. I showed him the price points. And he was my hard money lender. He gave me $10,000 in 8 months. I gave him $15,000 back. You're not going to get that in your bank, but he had that capital. He saw my vision, and he was able to support me. A bank wasn't willing to give me that money. So I think really identifying, your resources. There is a book that I read by Ken Coleman, and it's called The Proximity Principle. And it talks about, when we were young, when we were teenagers, think about when we got our first jobs, right? When we got our first jobs, it was basically based off of somebody that we knew or a friend of a parent. But as we become adults, or as we become business owners, we don't utilize our internal network first. So we have to really look at who's in our network, because they say your network is your net worth.
Yep.
And that is so true. So having friends that have access to capital, $10,000, $5,000, whatever, I was able to acquire those funds to get started and pay them back that revenue. Now they're seeing my success, and they're like, hey, I got 30,000 that I can invest. How do you want to do? Now they want to do business with me, because they want to get those large returns. But identifying those individuals within your circle and maximizing on their strengths, so that collectively you can have a finished product, or really work towards something positive that can impact your community in a positive way.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why we decided to read each one of your bios at length is because we want to make sure that the community, the attendees, and also each one of you knows what the other person has to offer, what's their background, because we always say that chances are what you need is only one person away. Someone on this stage has the solution to your problem. So I love the fact that you said it's very important to utilize your internal network. your siblings, your best friend, your colleagues, and then just go around the circle.
So,
Like that.
Sonia,
Yep.
and it just goes to add, like,
Mhm.
if you're an entrepreneur, money shouldn't. There's certain things that shouldn't even be an excuse. That's that design thinking, right? Because
Mhm.
now, if you understand collaboration, you understand that most people think if I don't get support from a bank or an investor, like in a formal way, I'm done.
Right.
But now that design thinking and community again, so that just hit
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, just with design thinking, it's just that it's thinking, right? You
Mhm.
have to think, you have to envision yourself within that role of being a business owner. If you can't see yourself doing that, you're not going to be successful. I envisioned myself leading my organization. I envisioned myself standing in front of the boardroom with multiple people at the table, and it came to reality. And it was this
Mhm.
aha moment. It was serendipity right there. You know,
Mhm.
some people talk about being entrepreneurs, but they don't know the difference between being a business owner and being self-employed. They never
Mhm.
even had that conversation with themselves because they're two different entities.
Hmm. I love that as well, because one of the other things that also really helped me and empowered me when I was laid off 8 years ago was after 1 year of being depressed and not knowing how I moved from almost earning six figures and now having zero in my account. But still, that did not stop me from exposing myself to a group of CEOs, a group of entrepreneurs. And at that particular point, I heard of an event that was happening, a meeting actually, that was called the CEO Roundtable. Remember, at the time, Men Impact Change was not born. I had the idea, but I really did not know how to go about it. And I decided, you know what? I am not working. It was on a work day. I remember on a Wednesday morning. Why not just drive to Baltimore downtown to the World Trade Center, all the way to the 23rd floor, to that CEO roundtable? I can tell you it was a very intimidating experience, but what I got out of it was what made me have that courage and the knowledge and the skill set to really found Men Impact Change. So absolutely, having a vision for yourself, a 5-year vision of yourself, who you want to be, is so, so important.
And
Or,
I feel like definitely,
yeah.
if I may add, the
Yeah.
first things I did in Mindstand was I went on Eventbrite, I went on Meetup every 3 days and would find any
Mm-hmm.
event that was in the line of what I do that a
Mm-hmm.
speaker seemed of interest. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so important when you think of community to use that word awareness. So important, you be aware of the things around you as well as you if you want to. Again, if you notice that, okay, I'm in a bakery and there's not many Black bakers that I'm seeing in my area, just
Mm-hmm.
create an Eventbrite. Just put out that energy, jump on a Zoom and make that link publicly available once a week. You're going to find people that can really resonate with you. And that all speaks towards, especially when you think of, sales, people here who are trying to start a business and grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, the thing I've learned is never make it a sales goal when you're this early to make 10 sales. Understand how many people you need to talk to in order to get the first sale. So if you need to talk to 10 people to get to one sale, say I need to talk to 100 people over the next month, and then create a plan around that. Because those conversations, those reaching out to potential clients or just partners means the world to them and will make you, just that point, courageous. Courage is a skill that you have to work on.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to the topic here, how do we foster collaboration? Because that is something I feel our community is missing. Michael, do you have any ideas on how we can foster collaboration?
Yeah, hackathons. I think any ways to create these events. One of the great things, of course, this pandemic allowed all of us to connect with people we may have never thought of being able to do online. Being able to encourage that, make yourself a resource to others. Whether you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing open opportunities for mentorship, um, whether you want to create, like I mentioned, Instagram lives, it's
Mm-hmm.
so important that you have to make yourself open to the next person in order for this collaboration to happen. Because people are ready. Never think that there isn't someone who's sitting in your shoes or someone who's about to be in your shoes 5 years from now. That if you just gave them that encouragement, if you shared, some people that you in your network, that you talk to every day, that could mean the world to the next person trying to be, in those shoes.
Absolutely. And I saw a notification here, Hazik. I know you have some great information on how we can foster collaboration. Um,
Sonny, interestingly enough, I just wanted to bring up
mhm,
this has been such a transformational event. And one key point in this specific topic of fostering collaboration, um, I kind of was sensing that there also has to be a shift in people. We use social media a lot, and a lot of times people assume that just because they're on social media, they don't have to do the work. They don't have to, and that's a barrier, right? They don't have to go and build connections. And social media is an extension of what we've been doing offline for a long time. Still have to build a relationship. Yeah, you can put
mhm,
ads,
mhm.
but you still have to connect. You still have to build networks. And so I appreciate that you guys are encouraging people, because sometimes you said courage is a skill that you have to work on. Sometimes people are so discouraged that they think just posting something is going to get your business to grow.
Absolutely. Hazik?
Nah, man, there's a real science to it all.
Mhm,
What I suggest is that we kind of like institute different habits, because see, the thing about habits, we always teach that you don't change your life in a day, you change your life in the daily, right?
Woo!
So what you want to do is you want to create habits that make success inevitable rather than making failure inevitable. That's the
mhm,
whole play. You want to put that thing on autopilot. And so when you're talking about fostering relationships with intention,
mhm,
what Dr. George Fraser teaches is that there are 3 different types of networks that maybe you want to be looking at formulating in your life.
mhm,
One would be your personal network. You know, um, it takes a village to raise a child. We all know
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And, I really love what Michael said about how hard work breeds hard work. What's wild is that laziness also breeds laziness. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mediocrity breeds mediocrity. Uh, you know, Proximity is power, because there's something in human science called homeostasis that says you're naturally going to kind of keep pace with the people you around.
Mm,
So when you're looking at your personal network, sometimes it's important to have these people around you that love you and lift you up and cheer for you.
mhm,
Family, extended family. But what are you doing to make sure that you keep those ties strong?
mhm,
Second network is your operational network. And what Michael was talking about, I guess this would be the people that are in the area of feasibility, like where it's time for us to look at how are you going to pull this off? Who are the people that are going to help you get this stuff done? You know, and then you have a strategic network. So now we're talking about the people who are smarter than you, the people who are where you want to be, the people who've been there, done that, and gotten a T-shirt. Um, so there are different habits you can institute in your life that will start to make this stuff, before you know it, your life is a little richer, because you have a stronger inner circle. And then, as you go to those concentric circles, they don't have to be as weak. A lot of these relationships don't take a 3-hour conversation every day,
mhm,
but we can do some things. We can write 3 personal notes a day, right? Like maybe sometimes you're pulling out the fountain pen and a gold embossed card, but maybe other times, maybe it's just a quick little text message. Maybe it's an email. But what if you had that habit to do that 3 times a day, like 3 people a day, right? In one of those networks, maybe one from each network, who knows?
mhm,
Um, Maybe you do 3 phone calls a day, and sometimes we're busy. So maybe you set the phone call up before you
mhm.
jump into it. This is the kind of stuff that we cover in our morning trainings. Like, we're always just giving like mindset, skill set, heart set for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking.
Mhm.
So one of the little hacks when you're calling your people is maybe you let them know, hey, look, I'm about to step into this appointment in like 10 minutes, but you was on my mind, man. How are you? you know, and just kicking it with them about nothing business related, nothing whatever, but you're just like connecting with old friends. You're connecting with old family. A third habit might be to reach out to people who have already purchased from you. You know, I teach that every business has 3 different units. You know, we have an academy called the Kaizen Academy. To Sonny's point, you know, we just found out you guys will hear it. I'm kind of sharing it with you guys because you're close family and friends. But what you'll find out on Tuesday is that our company was blessed and fortunate to be recognized as one of the fastest growing companies, you know, in the Inc. 5000. We just now got, you know, recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And it's a pretty big deal, but it's really just the fundamentals, right? So I always teach that every business, every nonprofit, every right, you got a before unit, a during unit, and an after unit. And what people do, they always focus on one of the 3. But a lot of times, what they do is they don't realize that you don't even have the ability to create loyalty, gratitude. You know, I ask them sometimes. I say, you know, do you have customers that could possibly give you more clients? They say, yeah, Ali, of course. I say, well, can they give them all to you on day 1? Well, no. Can they give them all to you week 1? Well, no. Can they all give them to you the first month they know you? No. You know, they may have 100 clients for you. They may have 1,000 clients for you. But what you have to do is foster the retention of that relationship so you can mine it for everything that it has. You can harvest that thing. So when do we do that? You really do that after they bought something. It's not until after they bought something that gratitude is even possible, because everything you did for them up until the point they spent some money with you, they felt entitled to that. It was like, you better have. So what if every day you talk to 3 customers who've already bought something from you? So that's like 3 different habits you can institute that'll foster closer community.
I love that. Absolutely. And one of the habits that I've installed for myself is every weekly, 1 day in a week, I'm calling it a relationship day, where I am making an effort, dedicating that day to intentionally make calls, meaningful calls, not asking anything, just checking in on some of our Men Impact Change community members or just my personal network, checking in on them, asking them, you know, do they need any support in anything? Just to foster that relationship. I think it's very important. It has worked a great deal. And like you say, to your point, some of those phone calls are not going to last a whole hour. It's 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. So in 1 day, if you're dedicating that day, just about 5 calls between 8 to 5, that's all. And you don't know, especially in the world we are living in right now, that call will make a lot of difference to the relationship you have with that particular individual. All right. So with that, the next question here is, how do we foster entrepreneurship education from a very young age, from kindergarten to college? And what can the attendees as well do to foster these efforts right now?
I'll share a little bit about that as well, because one of the things that I'm doing now is I have two children, and I'm trying to instill in them an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So even with my daughter, she has her own business, right, that she started, and we're talking about it, and it's encouraging it. And then we talk about the work that I do as well as an entrepreneur, right? So you kind of get them in a habit of it. And it's kind of based on what she's interested in and what she wants to do, but showing she can turn her passion into entrepreneurship, into a business, right? So she doesn't automatically get the mindset of like, I have to go work for somebody, right? So I think that's an important piece, is kind of starting at home and making it an option for our children and for the folks who are around us as well. And so that's one way. The other way too, as well as I've been fortunate enough to be able to teach a lot around design thinking, and I do it a lot in community. But this fall, I'll be doing it at a university as well. So I'll be teaching some at the Maryland Institute College of Art in their social design in their master's program. So I think that's another way that we can do it, is kind of in these formal settings as well, whether it's institutions or schools or other ways. But I think you gotta make sure it's balanced, where you're doing it in your own individual personal circle, and then also these more formal institutions, I think, have some responsibility, including schools, right? I wish I would have learned that in elementary and middle and high school about entrepreneurship. I didn't get it to well after, but I just think, like, what if I had gotten it sooner? So it's got to be these informal networks and formal.
Absolutely. And one of Men Impact Change visions, 5-year to 10-year vision, is we want to start academies to really teach the younger generation, very young, from kindergarten, to learn about entrepreneurship, and most especially the terminologies of investment terminologies. How are they going to know those terminologies that they can use to communicate with investors as well? So that's one of the ways that Men Impact Change is really going to foster this type of education to the younger generation. And we are still going to work with you, Piquet. This design thinking, even though it's the last event today, we are transitioning it into an actual program. So we will you'll definitely hear from us. We would love for you to come back and really dig deep into that concept. All right, Mike, and then Hazik, would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Well, I'm also a parent. I have a daughter that's 14 years old, and my wife, she has a full-time job, but she also is a consultant, has her own consulting business. So from the day of birth, our daughter has just been dragged to every meeting imaginable. I can recall my wife telling me at the age of 3 years old, my daughter was at a meeting with her, and they asked that, did anybody have any questions before they closed out the meeting? And she raised her hand, and they asked her, what do you have to add to this? And she says, well, I don't have a budget. So she knew, when we talk about linguistics, like a 3-year-old saying the word budget, it was like letting me know that we were doing the right thing. And she goes to the Waldorf school, and they really focus on creativity. So she is a part of the creative class. The other day, she was coming to my office and she was complaining about being bored, as teenagers do. So my response was, go to your room and don't come out until you create something. And she did. And so I really want, so doing that, she will create things. So then telling her how to monetize the things that she is creating, so that she can make money off of those things, and giving her opportunities to be in those spaces where she sees other entrepreneurs as well. One of the things that I do personally is I do talks to a workforce development group of youth one time every summer, just to tell them about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And Sadiq Ali, who also is a part of Men Impact Change, he and I, we had put together a curriculum on entitled the Young CEO Program, which was a 13-week program to go and talk to youngsters at an alternative school, to give them all of the principles that's required in order to be successful entrepreneurs. So it's a part of everything that I do. My daughter comes to my office. She knows everybody's responsibilities. So it's infused in her. And I'm like, you could be a teacher, you could be a therapist, but you also have to be an entrepreneur. You have to, that has to be a part of what you do. Just being a teacher or a therapist is not just it, nothing against that, but she has to be self-employed as well. So
great. I like that she already knows what a budget is. All right, Hazik.
Oh yeah, same here. It's to the point now that, because I think that there were rough moments there where their mother, who, she spells love stability, you know what I mean? And so, her whole play was always having like a really good job, et cetera, so forth. And because she has a lot of the influence over their minds, there was a moment there where maybe, daddy's path wasn't looking so seductive, because we always make it sound hella sexy. Daddy ain't never had no job, but goodness knows there be valleys and peaks. So God is good. Now it's looking like a much better kind of like it's like we they say if you talk about it while you're going through it, it's complaining. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But you come out on the other side of that thing, man, and then it looks so. I'm very blessed and fortunate to have them able to see, in real life how it transpires, and they're all into investment. They'll tell me about different stocks they're looking at, et cetera, so forth. But they have not quite fully come to me and said, "Hey, this is the kind of business I want to start," or "This is what's going on." And that's okay, because goodness knows the way society is just like the rest of my family. Like my sister's an Ivy League educated physician. Mike, Sadiq is my brother. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We
So
all family now.
that's right. So now it's kind of like everybody want to be an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? But before it was just like I was probably looking like a crazy man. It's like Noah, you a ark building madman. The people never even heard of rain. Think about that. So that's what I always tell people. To me, the Bible, the Quran, these are just big old books about entrepreneurship. When it's like, write it and make it plain, expand your territory, go for it. These are all entrepreneurial concepts. They are teaching us, and then the whole books be networking advice. Don't love thy neighbor. Don't. This is just so you begin to develop a personality, right? That attracts success instead of pushes it away. Like personal development is short for personality development. What you're looking to do is create a personality that attracts success instead of repels it. And so that's why we study this mindset, and that's why the best part of ourselves is teaching that to our children so that they can become a part of our legacy. Like a succession with no what is it? Success with no succession is failure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. I think we're going to create some sound bites with some of those gems that you've been dropping, Hazik. We'll definitely do that. Okay, Michael, how can we, what actionable steps can we take right now?
Yeah, and as the youngest person here, I think I can say, as an expert former child, I could really speak towards the. Growing up, I saw balance sheets all over the kitchen tables when tax season was around. I saw the accountant come in and would stay for hours just to help us like make this be. Both my parents were prevalent in my life, and we're both small business owners. My dad working in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. My mom owning 2 pediatric clinics now here in Prince George's County. They've made it very clear that they not only want to create something of themselves, but they want to pay it forward. When COVID hit in Nigeria, my dad was able to work with the government to bring, palliatives to the community. My mom, never stopped working a day during this entire pandemic to make sure these kids and their parents, were healthy as well. I really got to see and them, my grandfather was originally a pineapple farmer in Shagamu, someone who really made of the earth his own business. So I just soon saw that, again, me being the third or fourth kids, this is the opportunity for me to do something. When the idea came and I saw that this is aligned, I just thought about where my dad was when he was 19, 22. I just knew that, having those positive role models and seeing people a bit older than me, but looked like me and carrying out that lifestyle, it was real and possible. So any ways to just continue having those right representations that inspires people.
Great, absolutely. Wow, gentlemen, it's been such a great honor to have you for these 2 hours. You have freely shared your knowledge. You've shared a lot of great information. We are going to go back as a team and create sound bites. Like I said, we are going to create little videos for each principle that we've learned right now. And this is just a continuation of our collaboration. We will continue working with each other individually and as a team, because now you're part of the Men Impact Change team as well, or the Men Impact Change community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We honor you. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to really building this community of design thinkers and really furthering our collaboration as well.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
all.
much.
Great. And Nyandusi, it's been such a great honor to do this with you. This is the first time that we've hosted an event together, and we will definitely do this again. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Likewise. Thank you so much for this. I mean, this needed to be a law. It was so rich,
Yeah.
but the beautiful thing about it is in what we're going to share is even joining the community. Those who have been right, they've been following this event today. But I think, what did they say? The best way to grow is to be part of the best way to grow is to be part of the community. So I think this has been awesome, and also letting the community, the people came to the event to know to join the Facebook group, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I think for me, this you used a quote that is very powerful, and I live by it. Knowledge on its own is not power; it's
Yeah.
potential, right? So if there's
Great.
nothing, you can read a ton of books, you can go to events, but if you don't apply, the application of knowledge is power. And so just even connecting to what that was learned, taking a piece that they learned from the audience, from the speakers, joining the Facebook group, becoming part of the Men Impact Change community. Now you're applying, right? And I think I'll use an example. I've been talking about the book Atomic Habits, right? If I read this book and it was a good book, but I don't make some changes, which I've been making, then I was just wasting time. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nyanduti, for offering your expertise, your time. This actually is not the first time we've worked together. We've been doing this since the pandemic hit last year. So you're also one of the core pillars that have really supported and really encouraged us and kept us going. So thank you so much for passing on the baton and being part of this great community. And also, I do want to appreciate one key person here that were it not for him, all these virtual events that have been going on since last year, it has been such a new experience for all of us. But thanks to Scott McCabe, who is always behind the scenes, working very hard, making sure that the branding looks great for Men Impact Change. The technical piece looks great and it's flawless. We really appreciate you, Scott. I know he's such a busy gentleman working for Loyola University, managing all the big events going on in the community. But thank you for your dedication all these years since last year. We really honor you and really appreciate you as well. If we can go to the last slide, I would love for us to also really appreciate the partners. Thank you. All these great partners are the reason why we've managed to really launch the design thinking concept. Thank you, American Classic Agency by Gladys Ondari, the MDRT Foundation. We really appreciate you. Pete and Pete Investors is a very dear partner of Men Impact Change. They actually invest in the younger generation. Please contact them. They teach them when we're talking about fostering this investment and entrepreneur terminologies. This company does exactly that. They teach stocks and investment to teenage all through college. So it's very important that we are very honored that we partner up with you, but it's also very important that you connect with them as well. We all know Swahili Village, which brings a taste of Africa, a taste of Kenya. It's a great Kenyan restaurant. They have two locations, one in Beltsville and another one in DC. The owner is actually one of our honorees and also a former board member of Men Impact Change. And after serving his time as a board member, he's always coming back every single year to support our initiative. So we honor you, Swahili Village, and please make sure that you visit them as well. Brian Core is a realtor in Texas. Men Impact Change, some of you may not know, but we have a branch in Texas. He's a great support, but he also has connections all over Maryland. Please connect with him. He really believes in building your wealth. And of course, Minnie with financial security, please connect with her as well, but really appreciate you. And Lakita Holmes, thank you for making this workshop possible. With that being said, move over to networking session. For those of you that want to continue this conversation and network with other attendees, feel free to move over. And
Sonny, just also want to let you know that on the comment section, a lot of your team members really did a phenomenal job on the comments today.
Oh, great. Absolutely. Yes, I do. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you so much, my team, my dynamic team, Men Impact Change. This has been quite a journey from the very beginning all through. We are going to have a debrief meeting at 1 o'clock to really share more about how we can continue this conversation. But we do see you. We appreciate you for being part of this workshop as well. All right, with that being said, thank you guys, and make sure you join the Facebook group, subscribe to our website, follow us all over social media so that we can keep this community going, keep this supportive energy, supportive community going as well. So thank you guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday.